So the other day, my kid comes to me and he says, "Hey, Pop." He never calls me that. And he says, "You directed and wrote God of War 1, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, is it true that Jesus Christ is in that game?" And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He says, "Yeah." He says, "I just saw a video about it online. It's got 2 million views. Jesus is in your game." And I'm an agnostic fella, but I figure I'll fuck with the boy a little bit. And so I say, "Well, son, Jesus is everywhere. He's in every game. You remember in Doom when you're running around shooting the demons? That wasn't you. That was Jesus. He was carrying you the whole time." I have to be going to hell. So we sit down together and we watch the video, and good God, the kid ain't wrong. And if Jesus is in God of War 1, what the hell's he doing there? I'll tell you what, the Catholic Church better not come banging at my door asking for royalties for likeness rights because, I don't got that kind of money. So this video is all about that. We're going to dig into, is Jesus Christ actually in God of War 1? And if so, the hell is going on? Is this dementia? Did I put him there? This is bad. I could be getting early on. Let's begin. Okay, so this is the video right here. And it talks about this glitch that ended up in the game. Wasn't intentional, but if you know how to activate it, it gives Kratos the ability to basically jump forever. Now, I'm almost certain this glitch wasn't a glitch. It was a secret code developers used when we were making the game, and we used this to fly Kratos through blockades, through battles, through areas that we didn't want to get stuck in when we had to get to another section of the game quickly. Super convenient for development, super necessary, but it was supposed to be taken out, and it wasn't. And somebody found it. And what that did is it opened up this mystery, because suddenly now, if you do this glitch in Athens, you can fly up and you see this image right here. And I've kind of brightened it up a little bit, but even in the original video, this looks like the famous crucifixion scene, which means this kind of seems like that's Jesus. But why? Why is he here? In this game, where in the game's timeline, Jesus wasn't even born yet, let alone being crucified, so it just didn't make any sense to the story. And it wasn't like I put it in there. I'm an atheist agnostic. It's not like I was trying to proselytize any kind of religion, let alone a Christian religion. The producer was a Buddhist. We did not put this in there. We had no clue. Why is he there? Why are you there? What's he doing there? What are you doing there? And here's a little inside baseball to the way we made games at PlayStation. Nothing, and I mean nothing, goes into the game if legal doesn't approve it. Every texture map, every model goes through legal to make sure that we're not accidentally, or sometimes I guess intentionally, I don't know anything, ripping somebody off, putting something in the background that's going to get Sony sued or get Sony's PR hit bad because somebody wrote the word "fuck" in the sky. Any of that shit, that all goes through legal. They would have seen this. They didn't see this, because if they would have, we would have heard about it. Certainly, it wouldn't have gotten past Shannon Studstill, the producer. I reached out to her. I said, "Hey, do you know anything about this?" And she said, I'm reading it right now. I just texted her. She says, "It's the first I've heard about it. Are you sure it wasn't video composite and somebody's fucking with you?" I said, "No, this is a real deal." And you have to understand, making games at PlayStation, everything goes through legal. The texture maps, the models, every voiceover line, they have to make sure that we are not intentionally or unintentionally sneaking something in, something that we don't own the rights to, something super offensive that would get Sony in trouble with PR issues, maybe even legal lawsuit issues where people are offended so much they want to take a lot of money out of Sony's pocket. They are on the job like hawks watching this shit. They would have known about it, they would have mentioned it to me, or at least they would have mentioned it to Shannon, the producer. Nothing got by Shannon. So how is it there? Why is it there? Well, here's what I think. It is Jesus, and it was put in intentionally by an artist who snuck it in and somehow got away with it. Well, look, first of all, you have to know how video games are made. There's this thing called texture space. That's the skin that wraps around the polygon, the 3D model, that gives it the materials, gives it the look of what it is, right? Otherwise, you're just looking at this kind of flat shaded gray body walking around. And there's only so much that the art team is allowed at any given moment of the game to have loaded into texture space, which means it's at a premium. So unless you are trying to sneak something in intentionally, why would you waste texture space that is very limited on something that is intended never to be seen, except if you know the glitch and the location and that there's something to look for, a secret to look for to begin with? You wouldn't. This was no mistake. This was snuck in the game. This is Jesus, and it was put there intentionally. Well, Jaffe, you could say, what if the artist just thought it would be cool to have an image of somebody being crucified in ancient Greece on the wall, and maybe they just put it in a bad location because they didn't realize how high the jump height was and this, that, and the other? That could be possible too. Aren't you doubling down a little bit too much on Jesus, Jaffe? Shouldn't we all be doubling down on Jesus? Oh, I appreciate that position, but I'm one step ahead of you, pal. Here's what you gotta understand. See, the Greeks, they didn't crucify. 6 times in all of ancient Greece history is what we see, historically, for crucifixions. They didn't like it. They looked down on it. They thought it was vulgar, and they weren't fans. They weren't This was not a normal thing that you would see on an image in Athens. So no. I win, you lose, you're wrong. Good day. I said good day. I still love you, though. Wink. Wink. And so that's how I know it has to be Jesus, because if you're an artist and you're going to sneak something into a game, a little signature moment to show your friends, why would you choose some random guy being crucified in an era where they didn't do that versus a little message for your kids or a picture of your kid's ultrasound or your wedding photo? You wouldn't do it. It would make no goddamn sense. And so part 1 of the mystery is now solved. That's Jesus. He's in God of War, and some whimsical skedaddler artist, some little chaos agent, snuck him into the game. Snuck him into my fucking game. Well, whoever you are out there, mission accomplished. Good job. Now, the second part of the mystery is, who exactly snuck Jesus Christ into God of War 1? Well, I have a theory about that too. Our brilliant art director, Charlie Wynn, who is credited, rightly so, with locking and finally really nailing the visual design of Kratos. Beautiful, gory, horrific art. Very religious guy. Very Christian guy, as I remember. Now, doesn't mean he did it, but he was beloved, again, rightly so, by the art team, which means that if somebody snuck it in, they told Charlie. And Charlie was religious, which means if it was Jesus, he knew what he was looking at. They would have shared it with Charlie, if for nothing else, to get his approval and his opinion. Now, I haven't talked to Charlie in about 15 years. Good guy. I think he's working on Fortnite right now. But if you know him, send him this video and get some details from the man, because if anybody knows exactly who put Jesus in the game, it's Charlie. And I'm not upset about it. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of subversive. I think it's kind of sneaky. I like it. I like sneaky and subversive. But I'll tell you something else I like about it. God of War was always meant to include Jesus. Now, if you're a hardcore God of War fan, you'll know that we had always planned to have Christianity and Jesus in the God of War series. Now, maybe you noticed this in God of War 2, but there's a relief on the wall deep into the game that if you look at it, it's very clear these are the 3 wise men, from the New Testament, heading to Bethlehem, following the North Star to witness and celebrate the birth of baby Jesus. Now, this was supposed to be the very end of God of War 3, back when I was kind of still involved with it and kind of mapping out the whole thing after the first game had come out. We knew we'd be making sequels. And the idea was the player would take control of the 3 wise men and guide them through the desert, tracking the North Star. Kind of like this scene in the original God of War, when you're following the sounds of the sirens through the desert in order to find the entrance to the temple. So other than just being a cool little gameplay moment, why did I want to put this in the game? Why was this supposed to be the end of the entire franchise? Well, here's what was supposed to happen. See, Kratos would be thrilled. He would have finally killed all the old gods. He could rest. He could get rid of his nightmares. He had finally achieved his ultimate goal. Ding motherfucking dong. The gods were finally dead. Except, oopsies. The whole idea is that as long as man continues to be man as we know him, is always going to need gods, is always going to create a reason for things they don't understand, or just simply a need to give voice or give name to what they know is out there, but they don't have the details yet. That's a different video, different channel. But the point is, Kratos would come to this awful realization that no matter how many gods he kills, they will just keep coming back and popping up like new Taylor Swift music. And so Kratos sees this and recognizes this, and he's like, screw it, I'm done. I'm done. I will never be done with these gods. And so he uses the Blades of Chaos to, end it. So Kratos is finally dead. He goes down to Hades, can't get rid of his nightmares, can't get rid of his anguish, the things he's done. And so he takes the Blades of Chaos and he melts them down in the river Styx and reforges them anew into the Grim Reaper's scythe. And he becomes the Grim Reaper that we know and love today. That was always going to be his fate. I still think it might. What a fitting end for this character. So if you've heard people talking about this ending of God of War, it was on the books for a while. That was the plan. I still think it's a great ending for God of War for the whole franchise. What's not true, though, is what we saw in this video, which was also a huge hit on the internet.
There's a secret reason God of War never touches Christian mythology. Sony was terrified of backlash. Developers admitted if Kratos killed angels or Jesus-like figures, the franchise would be banned worldwide.
I assure you, there was never a time we considered Kratos fighting Jesus. I mean, it would make no sense. Having Kratos, the personification of rage and violence, fight Jesus, this sweet pacifist kind, it was never planned for Jesus and Kratos to fight. That actually never even occurred to us. I do have an idea I just came up with that would be to see them interact. I'll share with you at the end of the video. But yeah, they weren't ever going to fight. So this idea that Sony's like, no, you can't do that. Never, never, no. Now, we did want to put Jesus on a dinosaur, and Jesus would have these guns and stuff in this other game I directed called Drawn to Death. And in that case, Sony said, no, you can't do that, they said. And I'm assuming that was just because they're like, look, if you're fighting against Jesus and you kill Jesus, you know, and I says to them, I says, well, if you kill Jesus, though, he's the best character to play, because if you wait like 3 seconds, he gets resurrected. It's fantastic. And they didn't think that was funny, and they said, you really have to take that out. And I said, okay. In terms of God of War, though, no, there was never any intention of having Kratos and Jesus fight, so Sony never would have had an opinion on that. Now, as it relates to the hidden picture on the wall in Athens, I think if Sony knew about it, I don't think they would have had a problem with it. Hell, I think it would have been a pretty easy sell, actually. You could have said, look, we got the baby and we got the wise men coming up in the second God of War. This is similar. You don't interact with it. It's basically there are visions hidden in the reliefs that tell Kratos what the future holds. And this is just another one of those. Hell, think about it. If Kratos would have seen this and known what he was looking at, he probably would have been convinced to abandon the whole quest, because he would have been like, what's the point? And then you could have done something with that. You could have the Oracle. This would have been cool. Kind of regret we didn't play around with this a little bit, at least in some of the drafts. Because think about this. This is what you could have done. You could have done something like Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid on PS1, where he reads your memory card and he's like, hey, you like Castlevania, right? You know, that kind of thing. You could have had the player, if he knew to do this, go up and actually see this relief, and then a little cutscene or something with the Oracle appearing from Athens and going, you have proven yourself a worthy... Stop looking at my tits. Only the most creative and curious would have found this relief, right? So the player's getting a bit of a pat on the back for being a good player, figuring out the glitch and all that, but it's also part of the story where the Oracle is saying to Kratos, you shouldn't be looking at this, because the quest I'm sending you on, it's going to fuck up that quest if you understand what you're looking at. I mean, you could have done some cool things with this, but again, it's not canon. It's never, never part of the story. But now that I think about it, it could be a really cool part of the story. Not so much Kratos and Jesus fighting, but here's what I think we could have done. So Kratos has finally done it. He goes back down into the underworld, prepared to fight whatever he needs to fight in terms of monsters and whatnot, to get his wife and kid back and return everybody to Earth, and everything's back to normal. But as he's doing this, he gets wind of this new god, this Jesus fella, and he's like, not on my watch, bitch. And he heads back up and he says, fuck it, I'm taking this guy out. That would be the game where he's fighting all the angels and Abrahamic religion kind of beasts and monsters and the golem and all this stuff. And his core weapon, besides the Blades of Chaos, of course, would be this spear. So at the end of the game, Kratos melts down the Blades of Chaos and turns them into nails. Those are the nails that nailed Jesus to the cross, because no other nails will work. And then he takes the spear that he's been using the whole game to kill monsters with, and he stabs Jesus in the side. And that's how Kratos kills Jesus. Turns out that spear he's been using the whole game is the Spear of Destiny, which, if you didn't know, is an actual alleged artifact that was the weapon that actually took Jesus out. So Kratos does that killing blow, stabs him in the side. We do the whole, God, why have you forsaken me business? Jesus is dead. Kratos is like, boom, done. Are we finished? Are we cool? Great. I'm heading back down to the underworld to finally get my wife and kid and bring them back up here. Kratos starts prepping his journey. He's going to go back down. He finally did it. He's ready to there's a whole party waiting for him. He's about to step into the underworld, but it's taken him 3 days to prep his journey. And right as he's about to begin that adventure, the stone rolls out of the side of the cave. Here comes Jesus stepping through. I'm back, bitches. And Kratos is like, son of a bitch. Now, Jesus being Jesus, at least as we think of him today, he's a good guy. He says, look, I'm going to help you out. Athena couldn't do it. Zeus couldn't do it. I can do it. I got the goods, baby. All you got to do is pledge your allegiance to me, and I'll take away your nightmares. I'll forgive your sins. And Kratos is like, that's a good deal, but I don't think so. I haven't really earned that, and I'm a piece of shit, and I'm just gonna keep on being me, baby. And Jesus says, wait, I have another idea. I'm full of them, baby. Son of God. So Jesus goes, look, I get it. You're committed to the bit. Okay. but I need some help. So how's about you and me make a deal? And that's where the idea comes from, that Kratos will melt down the blades of chaos in the river Styx and forge the scythe of the Grim Reaper. And Jesus is the one that recruits him and says, look, death is not good, it's not bad, it's just a balance. We have to have it. You are good at killing, man. Become death for me. Help me keep the balance. You get to do what you love. I get to get the balance kept in the universe, and everybody's happy. And that's how we end the entire franchise, with Kratos at peace, not because he's gotten rid of his nightmares, that he has a come to Jesus moment, that he comes to grips with who he really is, which is just this ball of rage and fury and action. And in this awareness, as death, as the Grim Reaper, Kratos actually becomes a good guy for the universe. And in so many ways, as much as people would think this would be a blasphemous game, given that Christianity is, still active, it's actually kind of pro-Christianity, because Jesus literally saves Kratos at the end. Come on. It's almost kind of beautiful, really. And who would have thunk this little Jewish kid who turned agnostic when he was 7 years old would be the one to bring Christianity and the message of Jesus to the gamers? I think that would be pretty cool. But anyway, again, the question is, as my son asked me, hey, Pop, is this Jesus in God of War? Not officially, but I really like this idea, and I like that there was an artist that said, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to sneak this damn thing in. That's I dig that. I respect that. So officially, no, there is no Jesus in God of War. But, yeah, unofficially, I think it's a great idea. Hey, listen, thank you so much for watching the video. I do videos here about games I worked on, Twisted Metal, God of War, Drawn to Death, all of them. I also do videos about other games I'm playing, modern games, retro games, game streams, game news. Consider a subscription, a membership, like the video, notification, tell your friend, the whole kit and caboodle. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. I hope you're well. Be safe out there. I'll see you soon.